Yo, so straight out of the gate, guys, what we got to talk about is how Instagram's algorithm is broken. And it's broken in a variety of ways. Like basically every way you can post content on the platform, feed, reels, stories, it's all broken. And we got to talk about it. And I want to start with reels. All right, so across the board, pretty much everyone's reels are performing worse. And there's a lot of theories about this. I will give you mine, but Instagram basically, they recently rolled out the trial reels. What the trial reels do is it allows you to post reels to Instagram, basically flooding the feed with content that you don't want to share with your following. So if you want to test content to see how it does with an audience outside of yours, then you can just post a trial reel and it gets put out to people that don't follow you. This could be a potential reason why content is not performing as well, because obviously there's lower risk, which means people are more likely to put out worse content. So if you put out worse content, you're just going to be flooding people's Instagram feeds with low quality content, and it's harder to sift through to get to the normal content that you're normally seeing. So I don't know how much I buy into this theory, but I guess it makes sense because in the beginning, people were seeing a lot of success with trial reels. So I can only imagine that people were pushing it very heavily. Even now, I still post trial reels every once in a while. I basically use it as like a free ad. I'll basically like run like everything you missed on my page in the last week, and I'll put it into a trial reel format. That way, everyone that sees the content will go back and look at my page and be like, oh man, I missed all this stuff. Let me follow this page. So I basically use it as a free ad, but in my experience, they don't perform all too well. I think I've had like one or two break the mold, and that was in the beginning where I'm assuming they're pushing it a little harder. So to back that up, basically the theory is that people posting all these trial reels is breaking the algorithm to the point where it's too flooded with content and diluting the platform. That ties it back to why not as many people are seeing your content, because there's just too much to sift through. People are not scrolling as much, which brings me to a more likely scenario, which is that people probably just aren't scrolling as much. I mean, with everyone wanting to be an influencer, the market is very saturated and everyone's trying to optimize engagement by using baity hooks and all these visual hooks, and like everyone's trying to be super meta about everything. No pun intended. But yeah, everyone's trying to be super meta and basically grab attention in the best way possible. But if you see that same sound on Instagram 10 times in a row, you see that same style of hook 10 times in a row, like it makes you just want to get off the platform. Like that combined with the fact that more visually appealing content does better on Instagram is problematic, because you're seeing the same thing over and over and over again. And that gets people exhausted. And like, honestly, I would rather scroll on TikTok than I would scroll on Instagram at this point, because I just don't think they have a very good algorithm for the reels. And I think people have other options and they're using the other options. That's my theory, but it is a little strange that views are down across the board. All right, so moving on to stories. Stories are actually pretty interesting because they're broken in a good way. And by good way, I mean, it definitely was not intentional, but people are getting a lot more views using this one strategy. Basically, if you post one story to your story, that story will get a crazy amount of reach. But the second you add a second story or a third story, like the second you have more than one story, those views plummet. They go way down. And obviously, that's weird. So basically what people are saying this means is that when you add that second story, that is when the ranking system sets in. Now Instagram is looking at how many people watched through your first story, how many clicked away, how many took action on it, and they are using that data to recommend that story or not recommend that story. So if you only have one story, then of course you're going to get all the views because they have nothing to base it off of. But once you upload that second story, they're basing it off that first story and taking that second story and not showing it to people because they're like, oh, this many people clicked out of it. Although this makes logical sense, the difference in views is insane. Like, I'll show you an example on the screen, but this should not be normal. Like, you should not be getting double, triple, quadruple the amount of views on story 1 versus story 2 if you had posted story 1 alone. So I think that's broken, but yeah, if you want a lot of people to see your content, then just post one story. All right, third, we're going to talk about in-feed posts. People are having a lot of success with carousels lately on Instagram, which in my experience has always been the case, but I don't know if there's just a lot of new creators out these days, but I think there's just a variety of reasons for that. I think Instagram just generally promotes carousels harder because it's easier to. Like if you post a standard image, you really only have one chance to win with that piece of content, and you also collect a lot less data, as opposed to a carousel post where even if you have one additional swipe, Instagram will show people your first slide, and then when they refresh or the next time they're on Instagram, they will show them the second slide. So you get 2 times the opportunities to win that like, win that follow, win that comment. And overall, people are just spending more time on that piece of content because there's things to swipe through. And I think that is the main reason that carousels outperform regular picture posts. That being said, I run a news outlet, so a lot of times I just need to get a post up and I do picture posts, and a lot of them perform really well. I just have it in the back of my mind that, of course, if you have the time to add an additional slide, you should do it and you should make it impactful. And if you have a bunch of slides, then you should definitely add a call to action at the end, even if it's just something saying like, hey, if you're enjoying my content, consider subscribing or following, whatever. We're on Instagram, right? But yeah, I've been on Instagram for a long time and I've always seen that carousels perform extremely well, especially in my niche, which is like news and hip hop. So yeah, like the standard format for that is like, you have a cover image with the headline like, this thing happened, and then you swipe to see the thing that happened. People are now discovering that you could do that with pretty much everything. Like you can make a bold statement and then you can swipe to another text post explaining more, another text post explaining more, or showing examples, or people are even opting to use their short form videos as the second swipe instead of posting it to Reels because they know having a carousel will perform better. So yeah, that's the deal with feed, but I actually have a more specific issue to myself. I don't know if other people are experiencing this, so if you're watching this, let me know in the comments if this is something that has happened to you. But because I've been posting on Instagram for so long, and with our very large audience size, I kind of know about like how well a post is going to do after 5-10 minutes. If a post is at 20,000 likes in 5 minutes, I'm like, we're out of here. We're viral. This is about to get like 400,000 likes. And that was true up until like late last year. Now it's a bit more unpredictable because I think it's relying more heavily on shares or sends per reach or however they're phrasing that metric. So instead of just showing the content to people that they know will like it, they're more likely to show the content to people that are sharing it because they are saying that that is more impactful. And because we have such a large audience, we obviously have a lot of troll spam accounts. Like, people are just on there because they don't really use social media, but they want to learn about news. So they're not sending it to a lot of people. Again, this is all speculative. This is not fact. This is just my personal experience. But ever since they started making this change to make DMs more impactful for your reach, now when a post is at 5 minutes and 20,000 likes, sometimes after an hour, it'll be at like 60,000 likes. And I'm like, excuse me? That's not how this works. But I guess now it is. So let me know if you're experiencing that. Like if your post just stops at a certain point when you know it should be like going crazy. I've definitely experienced that. And I've also seen the opposite happen. I've seen a post at like 5 minutes, 5,000 likes, but then once the shares start rolling in and people are sharing it to their story and showing their friends and people are interacting with it, then it takes off and gets like 200,000 likes when normally it would get like 50,000, 40,000 after an hour. Obviously, I'm talking about a very big account. I'm talking about the @rap page on Instagram that says 12.9 million followers. So please do not compare this success to like if you're a channel just starting out or a much smaller page. Like we're talking about very big numbers. Those are not standard numbers. That was a little bit of a flex, but we're going to leave that in. But yeah, those are basically the changes I've observed. I've seen a couple clips of the head of Instagram talking about this, and he kind of just blames it on there being more creators and more people on the platform. And he's saying that the overall reach across everybody is more. It's just that for individuals, it is down, which is not good news to us. Obviously, we want our reach to be way up, and we want the overall reach to be up, which obviously when there's more people on the platform or more creators on the platform, that's just not going to happen. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this down in the comments and subscribe if you like this kind of content. Peace.